everyone, how are you? Hopefully you can hear me okay. Do give me a shout or raise a question in the chat function if you can't, but hopefully all is okay. So first of all, thank you so much for giving up your time this evening. This is our winter training webinar, so it's all the basics about what you need to think about for your winter training, where to prioritise, and then a few hints and tips for you going forward from there as well. So we'll get started. Make sure my PowerPoint moves across. There we go, so we are going. So first of all, just a welcome. I'm going to run through quickly the agenda for you so you know exactly what we're going to be doing today. I'll do you a quick introduction about me just so you know what my background is and where I'm coming from in terms of experience and racing and coaching. We'll run through why winter training is so important, what to focus on. We'll do a little bit on including your strength work, the structure that you are going to need to get you through a successful winter. Training in real life, so despite our best intentions, our best structures, things do go wrong and how to get past that. And we'll talk a little bit about the motivation on that as well. We'll run briefly through nutrition and supplements because they are slightly different over winter than you need during race season. A quick run through clothing, so what layers you need to use just to make sure that when you are outside in the winter that it's a bit more bearable, because that makes all the difference. And then we'll have a little Q&A at the end in case you get any questions as we go along. If you do have questions, then just pop them in the chat and I will answer everything at the end, so we keep a bit of a flow going, and then we'll come to everything towards the end, and anything that I can't answer straight away, then I will follow up with emails with you if you leave your email address. So hopefully that all sounds okay. So a little bit about me. I'll just kind of move myself out of the way so you can see. There we go. So my name's Gemma. I am the head coach at Block Coaching and Race Team. I'm a qualified triathlon coach. I am also an inside coach and tester. So I don't know if you've seen the inside, lots of pros use it. It's basically metabolic testing, but at home rather than in a lab, which is really good. I've coached athletes all the way from beginners all the way into Kona qualifiers and races, World and European Championships, and our first timers from not being able to swim all the way up to their first Ironman finish line. So we do a really broad spectrum of athletes. I'm also a level 3 personal trainer. I've done my level 3 pre and postnatal exercise, so I look after ladies who have just had children. 200-hour yoga instructor, life coach, and also a training BTF race official. So I'm very hot on what the rules are. So if you need any help on what you can and can't do during race day, come to me. And then in terms of my own racing, I have qualified for the World Championships with Ironman. Unfortunately, I couldn't go because I was pregnant with baby number 2. They ruin all our fun. But hopefully we'll get back there again. I've done the GBR age group worlds and Europeans at all distances for probably the last 10-12 years or so. It's still lots of fun. I still like to compete. And then national championships, and then some longer, more endurance-based cycling and events, so Le Jog, and then the Pan-Celtic race, both 1,000-mile cycles. So I have competed and trained in all weathers, and I've learnt to love it. So it's, if you hate it now, don't panic. It doesn't mean you're going to hate it forever. And then a little bit about me on the personal side. I've got 2 children, Ted, who's nearly 6, and Tilly, who's just turned 2. So first-hand experience of trying to juggle children and a young family with work and all the pressures of everything else. So that's me. Let's move on to our winter training. So this is why you're here, isn't it? Let's face it. So why is winter training essential? The most important thing to remember is winter training is where the magic happens, okay? Race season is where you show off. You don't want to be saving your training until race season and trying to juggle, trying to improve, trying to get fit, trying to get fast with your races. You want to do all of that over the winter, so when it comes to race season you are fit, ready and primed to go in and do those races and make yourself really proud. So off season we want to build, we want to make those gains now and cash in. So winter miles for summer smiles, they say. So we want to build our aerobic capacity and our endurance. Winter is best time of year for doing this. Okay, these are your really low intensity rides, your low intensity runs. We're improving our body's ability to deliver oxygen to our muscles efficiently, and that's done by the low, slow, long sessions in all three disciplines. And that's why it's really, really important to do those. Lots of people just go out as hard as they can for every single session, especially if you're new to Strava and you're trying to do all of your Strava segments and PRs and you want your KOMs. That's actually a really destructive way to train every day, because you're just tiring yourself out. Your body's not going to get fitter, stronger. It will initially, because it's a new stress, but afterwards it becomes an overstress and you're overtraining and you're doing more harm than good. So it's really important to slow down, even though your ego might not like it. We'll touch a bit more on that later on. So your winter training is also laying your foundation for peak performance in the spring and summer. So the foundations, we don't just mean building up your base, so building your endurance. We also want to really dig deep over the winter into your technique. And when we're slowing ourselves down and we're doing those longer sessions, it gives us time to reflect on ourselves, on how we might be, for example, striking the ground, how our hips might be tilted and pointed whilst we're doing our long runs, our long rides. Are we in a good posture? Are we running like this? Or are we nice and tall with a kind of pole all the way through our neck, standing tall and running as efficiently as possible? So lots of things to think about, but we've slowed ourselves down so we can really analyze ourselves. And the better our technique, the more efficient we're going to be. And the more efficient we are, the further we can go for longer, and the less strain we put on our body, the less injury, the less illness. So you can see it's all a really big holistic picture, and you can see then why slowing down actually makes you faster. Okay, so not only are we building our base of endurance so we can go faster for longer, but we're also doing it more efficiently. And this slow zone 2 training will also help your body to burn fat as fuel. So instead of burning off all the carbs and all the sugar, it'll actually dig a little bit deeper into your fat reserves, and it will start to find your energy from there. And when you're doing endurance training, that is where you want your energy to be coming from. You want to train your body to burn fat as fuel. That way, when we're fueling on top of that for your races, your body's go-to is still your fat as you're burning, as you're training, as you're racing, and then you're just topping it up with the carbs and the sugars. Okay, so that's kind of the other part of what we're building. We're training your body to burn the fat. So carrying on around this diagram, we're addressing weaknesses. So we've said a little bit about addressing our technique. We also review your strength and your movement. So a little bit of mobility, some self-analysis on there. So you can do this yourself at home. You can do it stood in the mirror. So basic functional movements like squats, like lunges. Are you moving symmetrically? So you could probably have a look at yourself sat now. Are you sat tilted? If you find that you're always sat like that, or your head's always tilted forwards or sticking out, then you probably got some imbalances around your spine or around your hips. So they're the parts that you really want to have a look and deep dive and identify now. And then through the winter, what we're going to do is work on your imbalances. We're going to straighten you up. If there's something that's weak, we're going to strengthen that up. For example, if you realize you've got weak glutes, then that's what you focus on during the winter. And then come the summer, where you've built that glute strength, your power is really going to shine through when you come to use that on the bike and then on the run as well. So you can see the knock-on effect from winter, just concentrating on the small little parts and identifying the weaknesses, really go on for big gains. Also with winter training, you can develop an awful lot of mental toughness. Okay, who looks out of the window and thinks, oh my god, that weather is horrific, and then you don't go. If you actually get up and go, you put your layers on, you give yourself a talking to, right, okay, I can do this, it's just rain, it's not going to kill me, I'll be done in an hour and I can come back in and sit back on the sofa again, and you go out there, that's a massive mental toughness tick in the box. And the more you can do that over the winter and you get used to it, when it comes to the summer, you've got that robustness, you've got the toughness, and you know if it rains on race day, doesn't matter, does it? Because you've practiced it and you're confident. Whereas everybody else that's looked out the window all the winter and said, oh, it's raining, I don't really fancy it, they're already 3-4 notches down in their confidence for race day. And that's worth so much more than training. If people don't want to race out in the rain, out in the bad weather, and they lose their head over it, it's a bit like going out to swim in a rough sea. If you've practiced swimming in a rough sea, it doesn't matter, does it? It's normal. But if you haven't, that gets into your head, and no matter how good a swimmer you are, that mental aspect of getting into a rough sea when you haven't done it before, or going out in the rain and doing corners when you haven't done it before, that loses you so much time, especially in a long distance race. So you really want to develop that as we're going through. It's really important, moving on, to refuel and recover. So we've had a hard summer's racing, we've had lots of fun, we've stressed our body to the max, pushing it through as we're finishing, maybe doing your 5K, maybe doing your marathon. So just take a little step back sometimes, refuel, recover, be gentle with yourself, allow that time. Some people take 2-3 weeks off, some people take 6 weeks off. It's entirely up to you, but make sure that you come back feeling refreshed and strong and motivated. It's not just the physical recovery that you need, it's the mental recovery, because training every day, day in, day out, can be really tough, especially when you've got a full-time job, if you've got children. So it's really important to find a really nice balance with that. So eat really good food through the winter. Take supplements, we'll come to that later, particularly as it's dark and there's no sunshine, and that really makes a big difference. And that's our kind of big overview of all the key things that you really need to think about during the winter. So I mentioned quite a lot about what to focus on in your self-analysis. So this table, it's a SWOT analysis. So if you're in the professional fields, you might see this quite a lot. It can be varied, but it's basically a way to look at all of the different aspects of you and how you perform. So we'll start from the top. It's called a SWOT analysis. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we'll start with strengths. I won't go through all of this in really big detail. I can see that I've just frozen. Can everybody see me still? Okay, so maybe if you can still hear me, if you could just raise your hand, and then I'll just carry on. Yeah, you can still hear me. Amazing. Okay, super. So hopefully the camera will come back. So let's carry on with this. So what to focus on? The first thing I want you to have a really good think about is your strengths. So what do you do personally that's better than everybody else? What are your unique capabilities? So it might be like we mentioned before, so you can go out and you can corner really fast in the rain because you're confident and you're strong and your bike handling is brilliant. You might be able to run uphill really competently and then fly downhill. So whatever your personal strengths are, write those down, because they're really important, particularly when you're coming to choose your races for next year. So go through your kit, your unique capabilities. It could be your knowledge, or it could be your mindset. So again, you know that in really gnarly conditions, your mindset trumps everybody else's. That's a massive strength. So we want to bank that. Move on to your weaknesses. What do you lack? Where do you find in races you are falling behind everybody else? And I don't just mean in speed with that. It might be the knowledge, it might be the confidence of knowing where everything is, how to set up your transitions. It might be just general race day morning preparation. You could be falling back on the strength at the end of the run, so you start to find it a bit more difficult. So whatever way you can improve and where your weaknesses are, write those down as well. And they're the really important parts that, again, you need to focus on over the winter. And then we move on to opportunities. So we take the above boxes and you're looking for opportunities going forward into next season. So what are you really good at? What are your weaknesses? And then perhaps try and have a look at what races suit you personally, rather than just the races that your mates are doing. And then you can pick your races that really motivate you and really keep you driving forward. So you might also consider things like coaching. There might be training groups. You might have a local running group that you want to go and join because it gets you out in the evenings when it's dark and wet and you've got that commitment. So anything that's going to really help you push forwards and help overcome the weaknesses over the winter, they're massive opportunities, and you want to really consider those and take those forwards. And then the final box is your threats. So things like, if you've got any recurring injuries, is there anything that pops up in your life regularly that you know is going to prevent you from training? Does your schedule change all the time? Are you particularly hard on yourself with negative thinking? These are the boxes that you really do want to take note of, because that's going to stop you from being your best. And these are the things that you want to focus on over winter. So these four are bringing out your best, your worst, your opportunities, and things that threaten your success. And you want to bring all of those in, and having the awareness and taking the time to think of these things and really bring them to the forefront of your mind will really, really help you going forward. So what to focus on and our key areas. So we've mentioned most of this as we've been going through. The most important thing really in terms of the physical aspect is your base building. So we're prioritizing the aerobic endurance with your long, slow workouts. Then comes the technique improvement, your swim drills, your run form focus, your bike handling. Okay. It's really important to get your technique right, because that's where it's going to come when you sorry, let me just change the settings on here. That's what's going to really improve your efficiency when you're doing your race. So for example, swim drills, lots of people think, wow, it's only swimming, I might be able to shave a minute or two off, there's no point swim training. But what your swim training does, if it doesn't make it faster, it makes you more efficient. And if you're not swimming efficiently, you are wasting a huge amount of energy. And that has a massive knock-on effect when it comes to your bike, and then when it comes to your run, particularly if you're doing an Ironman or a half Ironman, because they are long swims. So the more efficient you can be at swimming across those longer distances, the better you're going to perform on your bike and run, which will likely be your most favorite parts. So your swim training to become more efficient, not necessarily faster. And that's why you need to really focus on your swim drills and your efficiency over the winter. Recovery is a massive, massive priority. You need to make sure you're sleeping, do your mobility, do your stretching, some yoga. Really make sure you're doing your recovery sessions properly. I touched on this earlier, so you're not going max effort, Strava, KOMs all the way through your training sessions. If you've got a session in your plan and it says recovery, you need to do recovery, okay? You're flushing out everything, you're allowing your body to move at a really low intensity, you're not stressing your CV system, you're not stressing your muscular system. But by doing, for example, a zone 1 bike, you're promoting that neuromuscular activity and muscle memory. And despite going really, really slowly, you're still making gains, okay? So it's really important that you do slow yourself down. Mental training, again, we've touched on this, but visualize yourself in your race, how you look as you're crossing the finish line. You can even go back into last year's races and picture yourself what you looked like towards the end of the race. And if that's quite a negative image, if you're hunched over in your run, you're struggling, you're walking, use that to fire up your winter training, and then start to visualize next summer where you're strong, your shoulders are back, you're running tall, and you're really smashing it because you've smashed your winter focus training. Okay, consistency is the final kind of focus. So whilst it's not necessarily a type of training, the more consistent you are going through, the better you're going to perform come the summer, and I'll show you a little example of that later. So I said that I'd mention your winter strength. You're looking at your core, your legs, and your upper body. So you might be thinking, well, that's everything. Well, yes, It is. So it's all really, really important as triathletes. Quite often the upper body gets left out because you're like, wow, it's swimming, I don't need to bulk up, I don't need the extra weight. Um, Upper body strength is really important. It's important for holding the TT position. It's important for standing tall and driving on the run with your arms. And obviously it's really important for your swimming. So with strength, you need to start with your functional strength movements first. So these are your really basic body weight movements like your squats, and you're making sure you're doing this with really good solid technique. If you can't do these in really sound technique and really controlled, you need to stay at this stage until you build up the strength and the control to be able to do your functional strength properly. Once you've got that, then start to load in on the weights. You want heavy weights and low reps. This isn't going to bulk you up as endurance athletes. There's always a big fear that lifting heavy is just going to make you look like Arnie, but that doesn't happen. That takes an awful lot of hard work to get to that stage, and we're just not going to get there as endurance athletes. So you want to aim for lifting heavy, low reps, 3 to 5 sets, 3 to 6 reps. So you're really not doing too many at all, but you're lifting heavy. So we move on. Once we've started to load our muscles and we've started to get strong, we've got our functional strength, so we've got our really basic movements, then we can start to add in our plyometrics. So your plyometrics are like your jumping squats, your jumping lunges, burpees, things like that. So we add these in after everything else because we know that your body is strong and you're moving in the correct movement patterns to be able to load your body with such strength for the power moves to not get injured. If you jump straight into plyometrics before you've got your basic movements right, you will get injured. So this is why we're working through functional strength, weights, plyometrics. Plyometrics are brilliant. So if you get to those through the winter because you've built up on the other stages, you will be more powerful. Your joints and your connective tissues will be more robust, they will be stronger. So when it comes to things like running, in theory, your ground contact should be less, you should be more smooth, you should be more powerful, which means you're faster. So they're really, really good types of strength exercises to do. And then just on the end there, we've got our swim specific strength exercises. So if you've got dry land swim bands, so just bungee cords really, then use them. It's something that we're doing more and more on the team now. So they're also really good if you can't get to the swimming pool. So if you've got three swim sessions scheduled for a week, but you can only make the pool once because life happens, then you can just sub in a dry land swim session. So they're really, really good things to include. They're really, really beneficial. Don't neglect your strength over winter. You will find when it comes to summer and you're racing, you don't then want to put the extra stress through your body quite so much. So if you're racing a lot, generally you won't have so much strength training in your taper weeks, in the weeks up to your race. So you really want to make sure you've banked it and you've done as much as possible through the winter. So we'll keep moving on. It can be really hard during the winter to structure your week because it's dark, it's cold, family, work, Christmas, everything comes in, and it can sometimes feel a bit like the world's against you in your training. So you want to find a balance. If you can't find a balance between training and life, then everything seems to fall apart a bit. So it's important to spend that time with your family, with people who you live with, and figuring out your work schedule to really kind of pocket out some time each week. But it will change and life will happen. So your weekday sessions, ideally keep these short focus sessions, less than an hour. So 1 or 2 sessions, it depends on what you can fit, but even a half an hour session can be really, really valuable. So don't ever think, oh, I've only got half an hour, or oh, I've only got 20 minutes. That can still really count. Don't dismiss it. And if you've got an hour-long session planned in, but you've only got 20 minutes, go and do 20 minutes, because 20 minutes is more than nothing, and that's how you've got to remember it. Okay, 10 minutes is more than nothing. If you can get something done, it's always better than just nothing at all. Get your longer endurance sessions done on weekends if you can. If you've got family, get up early. Try and get them done before everybody gets busy. Incorporate your family. So park runs are absolutely brilliant over the winter. So quite often we have people that go and run to park run, then meet their family at park run around park run as a family, and then they'll run home. Or you can go and do a run and have your children on the bicycle next to you. There's lots of different ways of incorporating family life with your training, and if you can do that, it makes it so much more easier, and you're also kind of creating that role model self for your children. So lots of advantages in incorporating. It can be a little bit stressful sometimes, so you go out for your zone 2 run and they want to stop every 5 minutes, or they're zooming off on the bike and you're trying to catch up. But if that means that you can get your session done, then it's absolutely worth it. Home strength sessions, do these at home, 20 minutes whilst your dinner's cooking. If you can't get to the gym, it's so valuable. You can get an awful lot of strength done in 20 minutes. So give it a try. You don't really need too much kit. You can have some bungee cords or resistance bands if you need some extra kind of resistance in there to really feel like you're doing something. But never dismiss the power of home strength sessions. You could do 2 or 3 20-minute sessions a week and you'll have massive gains come the summer just on those. Do make treadmills and stationary bikes and swim cords available if you can. So get on the turbo. It can be a bit brain numbing sometimes, but find ways to make it better. Things like Netflix, put on the Tour de France or something to keep you mentally stimulated whilst you're cycling. These are really good if you're just doing a zone 2 session. If you're doing your VO2 max sessions, for example, you'll probably want to concentrate on what your session's doing. But for the longer ones, then by all means, put something on to watch. And lastly, just protect your time. If training is important to you, then prioritize it. This is something that I used to struggle with. I would just dismiss my training because I thought somebody else were kind of more important, and I would end up being sat watching the telly or something thinking, I should really have got on the bike here, this isn't what I wanted to do. So it's almost a bit of standing up for yourself as well. If it's important to you, make sure that it happens. And I've just put at the bottom there exactly that. Do you really need to watch EastEnders when you could be training? Put the telly on the turbo and use that time. So this is basically kind of what happens. Okay, so we do our self-assessment in the winter. So we're looking at ourselves. You've got to be kind, be critical, but be kind. Okay, and then we make this plan. We're focusing on our weaknesses, on our strength workouts, race demands, managing our time. We're choosing our kit, and we're learning to slow down for that base endurance training. We have our best possible plan, but inevitably kind of 5 days later, 2 weeks later, life happens and you're like, oh my God, I've failed already. I'm too busy. I can't fit my sessions in. It's all a big disaster. Whatever you do, don't give up, because this situation is normal. This happens to pretty much everybody. You just need to learn to adapt and roll with the punches a bit. Let yourself be flexible, learn to juggle things. Really consider what your priorities are in your life. So it might be that the children need to get to swimming at 6 o'clock every Thursday night. So yeah, we're not gonna ruin that time. That is what happens. But if everything's gone a bit wrong because you haven't got to Tesco's when you'd planned to get to Tesco's, actually that doesn't really matter, does it? Come on, let's do an order later on at night, and we can figure it out how that's going to work to make sure that you can still do what you want. So it does take a little bit of time to learn to find those little hacks and secrets to be able to find extra hidden time. So build that into your life, prioritize your key sessions. So if you've got 6 sessions a week, you might have 3 of those sessions that are really going to give you the most bang for your buck. And if you don't get those 3 sessions in, then you will sit back a little bit with your training. But the other 3 sessions, if you miss those, then actually it's not the end of the world, but they would be a massive bonus to your progress if you did do them. So at the beginning of the week, have a look at what you plan to do, prioritize those 3, maybe 4 sessions, however many you've got. Make sure you get those done, and then anything else at the end of the week is a bonus, and that way you're taking the pressure off of yourself. So you haven't got 9 essential prioritized sessions, you've actually only got 3, and if you get those 3 sessions done, give yourself a pat on the back. That's brilliant, we've made progress. But if you don't, then you just need to kind of juggle things around a little bit more, really understand, because most of us can fit 3 kind of 30 to 45-minute sessions in each week. So if we prioritize that and then start to plan around those 3 priority sessions, how to fit in all the extra bits, then you will start to make some really good progress. So this is a little bit of how athletes generally come to us, very much related to what I was just saying with the progress and the prioritizing. So I know it's a bit small, it's quite difficult to see, so I can send you the slides if you want them afterwards. But generally people decide to enter a race, they'll figure out a plan, they'll start their plan, and they ramp it up really quickly. So this is the red line. It ramps up really, really fast, and inevitably they get injured because they've gone from 0 to hero. I think we've all done it. I've done it. So you end up having a rest, you get bored of having a rest, so you come back to training too soon, and then you need even longer off because you haven't let yourself recover. Your injury reoccurs, you become sick again, so you have to have the time off, so you zoom all the way back down to rock bottom again. You start to feel better, you ramp up your training to 100% rather than easing back in gently, and the cycle goes on. You get injured, you come back too soon, you get sick, you ramp it up, and then you get a period of being demotivated. You try again a little bit, but it just feels really hard because you've had a little bit of time off. Your body's forgotten how to exercise almost. It feels hard, it's a struggle, because it always is when you come back after a couple of weeks, but inevitably you do feel better quite quickly. So you stop again, you peak, and then you just tail off, and then you have a bit of a panic train before your race. And this final peak is your final race day, and you feel a bit disappointed with yourself because you knew that you could have trained, and you've just kind of been up, down, up, and up, down, plateaued a bit just before race day. So this is what we're trying to avoid, and this is generally what happens if you don't go into your winter with a plan. So if you are struggling, if that is sounding familiar to how you train, you might want a coach, you might want a plan, or you might just want to sit down and really consider how your training goes, and think about it a bit more logically. So how we want it to look, again, you'll see it's not linear. We build up a little bit each week. Every week's block is slightly different because life happens. Some weeks you'll smash your training, some weeks you won't get quite so much in. And then you have little dips that are your recovery and consolidation weeks. But each time you're building up, so you've got your build block of maybe 3-4 weeks, depending on what suits your body the best. And then you have a recovery period, and then you're building again on top of that. And it's in these recovery periods that you make the most gains. So it's really important when you're told it's a recovery week or a rest week or a deload week, it's often called, that you do actually follow the zones here. That you do dial it back, or you do the shorter sessions, you eat, you sleep, you rest, because that's where all of the gains are going to be made. If you don't follow your recovery weeks, or you just keep going bam, 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 bam every single week without a rest, you're going to get sick, you're going to get injured, and you're going to end up back at square one again. So it's really important to load, and then to recover, and then to load again, even through winter. It's really very important. So winter challenges, what do we struggle with and how do we overcome them through the winter? So it's really important that we acknowledge our obstacles. So it's a bit like on the SWOT analysis that we did earlier. So what are our threats? what are obstacles that are going to stop us from training. We want to acknowledge them and embrace them so we can overcome them. The major ones, as we've put on here, are the weather. So it might be cold, it might be dark, it might be too windy, it might be icy. The days are shorter, and then we've got the Christmas holidays and half terms and things like that. So we're aware that that's going to come, and that's going to prevent us, or try to prevent us, from training. So we need to acknowledge these and embrace them and figure out how we're going to overcome them. So the weather is actually quite easy. Just change what kit, consider your kit a bit better. There's loads of really good secondhand kit around. You just need to find it. People buy cycling kit all the time, use it twice and then get rid of it. So never be afraid of picking up some secondhand bargains, because there's some really awesome stuff out there, particularly for winter. So learning how to layer and how to dress in all weathers is really, really important. This is something that I've learned, and it has really helped with my training. I used to be a very fair weather cyclist and I would never go out, but actually going out when it's really cold, or if it's raining, isn't that bad. It can be quite fun, it can be quite entertaining, but it's knowing how to dress for that weather that's going to carry you through and stop you saying, oh, I can't go and ride my bike today, the weather's not good. You need to set yourself smart goals. So I can send you a goal worksheet if you want to really get into this and figure out how to do your goals. So your goals need to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So specific, so you want something like your race. Which race are you going to do? But you don't just want to say, I want to come first, second, or third, because you've got no idea who's going to turn up. So that's not controllable, realistic outcome. You want to say, I want to run the half marathon in 1 hour 50, for example, and that's your personal goal. So it needs to be achievable. So if you're currently doing a 3-hour half marathon, is 1 hour 50 achievable? You also want to make sure that it's not too easy, because if you set yourself a really easy goal, you're not going to be motivated by it, because you know you can just kind of wing it on the day. But also it needs to not be too impossible, because again, you just won't work towards it. And also the time bound element, if it's a race, then you know what that date is, and that's your deadline for achieving that goal. And having really specific, smart goals. I mean, you can have lots of them, you don't need just one goal. You can have lots of them. Having these over winter will really keep you focused and motivated. So we'll often say to our athletes to find maybe a duathlon over winter, or a half marathon and a spring marathon. So we're not just focused on that triathlon over at the end of summer. We've got the interim goals that can really keep us focused and working towards something for that forward progress. Otherwise it can become a bit stale, because you're thinking, well, actually I've got 8, 9, 12 months before my next race. But bringing in those interims, it keeps you focused. You want to have a look at your little victories. This is really, really important, because how often do you get to the end of your training week and think, oh, that was a rubbish training week? But actually, you've had some really important key victories in your sessions that you've just dismissed. It's vital, especially over winter, that you're looking at these victories and you're banking them and you're remembering them and you're noting them. So you focus on your weekly accomplishments. So it could be something that seems small as you did your zone 2 session and you didn't go up into zone 3, and you were really, really disciplined and you just absolutely smashed that zone. And that might have been the first time you've ever kept at that zone. It could be that you've been out on a math run and you've kept at your math heart rate, but your pace at that heart rate has got faster. So that's a massive victory. It could be that it was raining and you got yourself out the door for 10 minutes on a run, whereas normally you would have just stayed indoors. That's a massive victory. So what if you didn't do your hour? You got out in the rain for 10 minutes. That's massive. Next week you might be 15 minutes, because you've got your confidence from that and you've celebrated, and actually that felt really good. I've had a win here. So this is the most important thing for winter training, actually, that I'd like you to take away, is to celebrate those little victories, because that gets you through and that makes you feel really good. It builds your confidence, and it's really good mindset training for going forwards. So moving on to team accountability, if you can get yourself some accountability whilst you're doing your winter training, then you will fly. Okay, so join a team, join a coaching team, go to a running club, have a mate that you do a run with every Sunday morning. If you've got somebody that you need to show up for, that is going to keep you going, it's going to keep you motivated. And on all those occasions where you're lying in bed and it's cold outside and it's warm in bed and you're thinking, oh, I just can't face it, if you've got somebody to keep you accountable, that is going to get you out of bed, isn't it? That's going to keep you moving and you're going to make progress. So find some accountability from someone. It doesn't really matter who it is. I'd probably say not somebody that's not sporty, because they don't necessarily understand, but find somebody to really support you and get you out of the house. And then the final one, find joy. So I don't mean a person, it's focusing on what you love. So what sessions do you really enjoy, and look forward to those sessions each week. Make sure you've got one of those sessions in every week. And if you haven't, or if your coach is programming you sessions and you haven't got something that really excites you every week, speak to them, tell them what you really like, why it motivates you, and then they can understand and program that in for you, because it's really important that you're enjoying this. We do a triathlon and we do sport because we love it, so make sure that that's reflected in what your training programs are. So I said I'll come to this later. This is our nutrition that we need to consider. So lots of people think because it's winter, we don't need to eat so much because we're not training as hard, we're not racing. But actually, you're still doing those longer sessions, you're still burning calories, you're still exercising. So you still need all of your major groups. So your carbs, which are your priority. So you want to make sure you're having carbs pre-workout, that they're easily digestible. So things like a banana or a small bowl of oats. You want whole grain, sweet potatoes, fruits, anything that's really kind of healthy carbs. Focus on your protein. 20 to 30 grams after exercise. Protein helps your muscles rebuild themselves. It helps your body grow and replenish and rebuild. So lean meats, fish, eggs, beans. Don't neglect your protein. You're not going to bulk up. You know, if you go and do a strength session, lift heavy weights and then take protein, that is not going to make you look like Arnie. That's just going to help your body to recover. It's going to help you to make progress and to get stronger. And also, don't forget your fats. Fats have had quite a lot of bad press. They're not really that bad for you. Fats are good for you. They help you with sustained energy. They help you keep going longer in sessions. So things like avocados, nuts, seeds, fatty fish like salmon, all really good stuff to make sure you've got in your diet. And then just splodge around the edge is your hydration. So yes, it's cold, it's winter, but you still need to drink lots of water. Add in some electrolytes as well, because when you're on the turbo, you're still sweating, particularly when you're on the turbo. If you're doing an interval session, you will be sweating buckets indoors, even if you've got a fan. So factor that in, make sure you're hydrating properly. Even if you don't always feel thirsty, just bear in mind how much you think you should be drinking. And then we come on to our supplements. So supplements for kind of general well-being, I've listed here. These aren't performance enhancing supplements. I have to be careful how I phrase that. So it's not, we're not discussing things like creatine and stuff like that. These are just general day-to-day winter keep you healthy supplements. Vitamin D is the biggest one, especially here in the UK. So we lose our sunshine, we've got shorter days, less daylight. Vitamin D deficiency is very common. So if you start to feel really tired, you've got no energy, that increases the risk of injury if you are vitamin D deficient. So it's really good to take a supplement generally for everybody through the winter. Helps to support your immune system so you'll get sick less. helps your bone health, and also improves your energy. So that's a really good kind of winter staple, along with the omega-3 fatty acids. So these help you with your overcoming the inflammation. So inflammation happens when you stress the body. So we're training, we're trying to stress the body. So this is a good thing. It helps you with your joint support. So again, we're reducing the risk of injury, and it can help improve cardiovascular function, which we're endurance athletes. We want the best cardiovascular functionality possible. So again, a really good one to have. Iron, I would definitely recommend if you're feeling really tired, if your nails have got ridges or they're a bit kind of crumbly or brittle, go and get your iron levels checked. Don't just take iron supplements, because if you take too much iron, that can be just as detrimental as having not enough iron. So it's really important that you kind of get checked, but it's very, very common, especially amongst women. So iron can be a really good supplement through the winter. You may also need that through the summer as well, but again, go and get blood tests done for that. Your GPs will do that. Magnesium, really good for muscle function and recovery. If you get muscle cramps, so if, for example, you get cramps overnight, you've got trouble sleeping, magnesium is really good because it helps you to relax and it helps muscle repair. So perfect staple. And then the last two, electrolytes, we touched on it briefly. Make sure you're hydrating. If you're drinking lots of water, if you're sweating on the turbo, add in your electrolytes. And then probiotics, gut health. The easiest way to improve your gut health is to eat more fruit and vegetables. That's what you want to be doing as athletes. But if you're struggling or you feel like your gut needs a bit of a boost, probiotics are really good. So all things to consider to help get you through the winter. So winter clothing, this is probably the most essential thing you need to get right this winter to keep you moving, keep you training outside whilst the weather's not very good. So layers, you want a base layer, an insulating layer, and a waterproof outer layer. If it gets really cold, then you can maybe add in some extra insulating layers. You're better off to have lots of thin layers than to have a big layer and then a coat over the top, because that's not really going to keep you warm. It's not going to whip your sweat away. So layers are key. So for running and cycling, you want some thermal tights, some gloves, a hat, and a windproof jacket. They are your staples for seeing you through. For cycling, you want some shoe covers. So things like the velo toes are really good because they keep the wind and the rain out. But just bear in mind, with velo toes, they're basically like having a plastic bag over your feet. So your feet will get really sweaty. And they do tend to hold a lot of water in there. So don't be surprised if you've got velo toes, when you take them off, you've got kind of soggy socks. That's quite normal, but generally it won't let all the dirty rain and everything else in. I've put a burner on there. So burners are basically square, almost like mini sleeping bags or fabrics, and you stuff them down the front of your cycling jersey. They can be really good if you're descending. It keeps your front warm. You might have seen in the 1960s Tour de France, they're stuffing newspaper down. It's basically like a better version of that. You can also get like kidney covers. So they're bands that wrap around your waist across your kidneys and keep the kidney area warm. And that makes a massive, massive difference in the cold weather. So have a look at those. Neck buffs, really versatile. Bring them up over your face if it's really cold. You can wear them as headbands. Just be careful for cycling. If you do wear hats and headbands and things, make sure that your helmet still fits. So give it a good kind of move and a wobble. There can be some extra advice on that on the internet, so it is worth checking. But it's always worth considering, whatever you put on your head underneath your helmet, does that still keep you safe? For wet and icy conditions, waterproof shoes and shoe covers and traction devices for ice. If it's icy, I would recommend not going out on a road bike. If the temperature's dropped below 0 or even below 1 degree overnight, I'd probably be cautious on going out on a road bike. For gravel bikes and bikes with more traction on the tyres are generally fine, but just be cautious. But you can cycle when it's really, really cold. Just be careful of the ice if that temperature drops too far down. But always, this is a massive recommendation, please, for safety, wear bright reflective clothing and headlamps. Generally, any time during the day if you're on your bike. For running, when it's dark, when it's dusk. So keep safe. That's kind of your big priority there. So we're just coming up towards the hour, so we will wrap up. Thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully this has been quite useful for you as an overview on how to keep your winters productive, and where to focus your energy and your thoughts as you're planning for your winter season. Winter is where the magic happens. I know that sounds really corny, and winter miles for summer smiles, but that's really, really true. You want to be doing the hard work through the winter and quietly beavering away. And then when it comes to summer, you can just show off and show everybody how awesome you are. So hopefully that's helped. My contact details are on the page there. I'll leave that up for you in case you want to be in touch. If you've got any questions, then please pop them in the chat, and I will see if I can answer them for you.